Hello everyone, welcome to the weekly recap. We have a big announcement today, Games Pass announcement, and then we have a release date for one game and a delay for another game. And a couple shoutouts, that's it, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So, just to brief everyone who hasn't heard, there was an announcement today from Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, that Games Pass, which was announced a while back, so we've known about Games Pass as being kind of like a service where you have access to a lot of games at once for a monthly fee.
Yes.
And they announced today that the exclusives, the big AAA Xbox exclusives, will land straight into Game Pass.
The first party games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, that's an interesting announcement. That's not something that anybody probably saw coming, because those are big, expensive, not necessarily expensive, but big games that we pay $60 for and we pre-order, and they're going straight into Games Pass. Yeah. Which is, to say it mildly, interesting, but personally, I think it's a really bad idea. Like, I actually thought, I used to think it's Microsoft. Microsoft is huge. They never really fail big initiatives. Like, it's Microsoft. Yeah. And I used to pretty much trust everything Microsoft did. Maybe I didn't see it, but I was like, well, you know, they don't mess up big time. Like,
but what went wrong to make you?
Well, in the last 6 months, Play Anywhere happened.
Well, yeah, I think it was actually a couple of years ago, but yeah, it's been an issue for a little while.
So, well, I guess what I mean is we've been talking about it for 6 months. We've been talking a lot about it.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
And the more we talk about it, the more we realize. I mean, Microsoft knows that's not working. Yeah. They've said in interviews before that it's people kind of log into another device once and they're like, that's cool, and they log back out and you don't see them on that secondary device again.
Well, yeah, and to add to that, I mean, they went from saying it on all their E3 videos that they could, remember the trailer 2016, the trailer would come up and it'd be like, Xbox Play Anywhere, to console exclusive is what we're calling this.
So there was E3 2016 where they were really proud of that initiative. Yeah, so you're right, it's been like a year and a half. And they were really proud. They were like, Play Anywhere, this is so cool. And they made a lot of people mad. Yeah. So clearly they didn't have whatever research they need to have. They didn't have it for that.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
And then the next E3 was like, there was 5 different names. Console exclusive, Xbox exclusive,
launch exclusive.
I can't even think of all the titles. And everyone was really confused. Yeah. We were like, what's this exclusive and that exclusive? And you could tell that they absolutely panicked.
How do I get it? Do I have to buy a PS4 to play that game?
Yeah, it was that bad. The messaging was that confusing. Like, we had no idea what was going on. And that was obviously a reaction to really being just legitimately surprised that people weren't on board the way they thought.
Yeah, they were surprised by that.
So since then, at least when it comes to gaming, I wouldn't say Microsoft as a whole, but there have been some things like that kind of make you think maybe they don't push exactly the right
I know what you're saying. It's basically the same thing that we've always talked about here on the show with their PC-sided initiatives that try to blend. And the best argument that people have out there, and it's a very valid argument, is that, well, there's no real exclusives then, because you can just, everybody owns a PC. Yeah, you can just,
computers are universally owned.
Play their game there. So yeah, so I see what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of, we've talked a lot about, if you've seen a lot of our videos, we've talked a lot about Play Anywhere and not being hugely in support of that, and it's worse that they know it's not working.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And so I wonder, what data do they have that's making them think that this will work? This could work. The Game Pass. Yeah. This could work. It really could. But my thought is, you take away, obviously Games Pass is aimed at the casuals.
Yeah.
It would not do you any good to take someone who buys, 10, 15, 30 games in a year and put them on Game Pass. That's not what they're headed for. So then it becomes, in my mind, I'm like, are there really enough casuals? And not just casuals, it has to be casuals who are buying less than 2 games per year. Yeah. Are there really that many casuals to
You're coming to that conclusion because of it's $120 a year, basically.
Yeah, and actually we should tie this back to what we just discussed about PlayStation.
Yeah,
because
it's actually
like really funny that these two things happened at once. Yeah. So in our last couple of videos, we talked about the fact that PlayStation announced numbers at CES, and they said we have 73.6 million consoles out there. Yeah. And we have 645 million software purchases, digital and physical. And you and I did the math, and that came out to just over 2 games per console per year.
Per year.
Throughout the generation, if you divide it up across the generation.
Yes, yeah.
So we've been very vocal that that's not good.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a number Sony would be dancing about.
Yeah,
it just isn't.
Lots of studios have closed down over the last 10 years.
So you start to tie that to all these other things that people are complaining about. Studio closures, IP cancels, and it makes sense. I mean, if they're only selling 2 games per console per year, and that's PlayStation, so we don't know if, any of the other consoles are selling more or less than that.
Yeah, it's very likely that Microsoft has similar numbers. They're not going to be wildly different, but it could be anywhere from, 1.9 games or almost 2 games to, 2.5 or more, or right in that number for what Microsoft's doing. So.
And one of our big I guess wishes in the last couple of videos was that we had those numbers for Microsoft.
Yeah.
I feel like we kind of just got them. Because,
because of the price of Game Pass.
Because of the price of Game
Being
Pass.
2 games a year.
$120 a year, which is exactly 2 $60 IPs in a year.
That's right, yeah.
And we're so okay with that we're trying to push everybody from our most serious to our most casual gamers to do this. We're going to put our big AAAs on here.
Yeah.
We want everybody on Game Pass. You wouldn't put your big AAA launches the day that they launch onto Game Pass if you didn't want everyone on Game Pass.
Yes. So it sounds to me like you're kind of dead set against this. Is that right?
I don't know if I'm dead set against it, but I can definitely tell you I am doubtful that the numbers make sense there. Because essentially what would have to make sense, there's people like you and I would argue a lot of them, who download, 10, 15, 30, maybe on a big year, 50 games in a year.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of money going through.
Yeah.
So basically what you're telling me is you have to have all the casuals who buy less than 2 games a year. Because if they're buying 2 games a year, they're equal to Game Pass, no benefit, no disbenefit.
2 or less.
So we'll say 2 or less, which is being slightly favorable. So 2 or less games per year. Do we have actually enough casuals to equal out those of us that buy 50 games in a year? I mean, one of us is 50 of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you actually do, though. I think a lot of people buy a console for 1 game, and sometimes it's Call of Duty, sometimes it's Grand Theft Auto. It happens a lot with the sports titles. You have people that only play Madden, that only play the NBA 2K. Some people do it for the baseball game that's out there, or hockey. I've had friends that would just buy that 1 hockey game, and they were happy with that.
So they buy the console
for 1 game a year.
1 game?
Yeah. So you do have some people that do that. You also have people that they bought the console one time, they got a couple games with it, and they just didn't continue buying new games. They just never
went on with it.
So this pass could benefit those people as well. There are a lot of casuals out there. We're the hardcore, the people watching this, we are outnumbered, I'd say 10 to 1, maybe more, maybe 20 to 1.
It'd have to be 50 to 1 to make it work. Well,
yeah.
That's
if
only
you
if
buy
you
50
downloaded
games.
50 games every year.
Yeah.
But that, to me, that seems like, I can see your perspective, but I would say it's close if it's not that there's more, because it's not really how many hardcore gamers and casuals are there, it's more of how many games are bought by each party.
Yeah.
Because the games have to
So you think that this is going to scare some of the hardcore off from buying games because they can get it in the pass?
I do think that if they continue to put out, the collector's edition with like all of this stuff that comes with it, we will continue buying that. I do think that there are several games that won't get purchased, and I think when you collect up all of the hardcore that buy everything, yes, a lot of them will still be buying a lot of games, but not as many.
You're saying kind of what happened with Quantum Break and Forza Motorsport 7.
Kind of.
Where they put it on PC and
it lost some of its excitement.
Yeah, like those games didn't sell nearly as well because there was a PC version, and it got a lot of bad reviews. Both of those games got bad reviews on PC, and it scared off a huge portion of people.
It scared off, though, the people that are really serious.
Yeah.
That doesn't scare off a casual. The casual couldn't care less, other than if they were going to buy an Xbox for it, which I think,
if you're going to buy an Xbox, definitely.
So, but that does show you these people that are really serious. That is where they are. I mean, that's where you lost most of the numbers there.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But it's interesting because it seems like Microsoft is just very, very okay with this mediocre, everybody just pay $120 a year. We said, we were pretty hard on Sony about that. We were like, that's not good. That can't be what they want.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of profit. And I feel the same way with Microsoft. I mean, I feel like they just signed a giant petition into place. Like, yep, okay, everybody, $120 a year, and we'll settle for that. Because I think, and there's one feature that's good about it, which is that they can, in theory, they could remove a game at any time, and you would have to buy it.
Yeah, I think they will do that. That's the only thing that really kind of makes sense.
That's the only thing that would maybe redeem it slightly. I'd still argue not all the way.
You've got to look at the model of EA Access. I think that Microsoft has the numbers on that. I think they have the analytics that go a lot deeper than any of us will know or could ever know on EA Access, because they partnered with EA for that deal. Just to use myself as an example, the day EA Access went live, I subscribed, and I've been paying for that subscription ever since, and I don't really see an end to that for me. And then the other thing that happened was not every game went into the vault on EA Access, so I ended up buying a lot of EA games. EA's not my publisher.
Because you get early access with them.
Yeah, because there was a discount on the title. But EA is not my publisher. They're not the one I go to for the bulk of my entertainment. I prefer Sony, Microsoft, Ubisoft, and Bethesda far above EA. But they got me to buy, I'd say, a good 6 or 7 games just because of that discount and getting to try out with the trial, the early access thing. I think that's one of the things they're going to go into. I hope they do early access for the title, and I hope they keep the games. I know that's not going to be popular, but a month, maybe 2 months on there, take them off, give you a 20% discount. I think that could really work. I think they might end up selling more games to some of those people if they take them out of the Game Pass eventually.
I think both sides exist on that. Now, the thing that you're mentioning that's not been mentioned with Games Pass is big. Early access.
Yeah, that would be
I think there's potential for Games Pass to have that. I feel like that's why so many people so loyally pay EA, though. I don't feel like it's to try out the game. I feel like it's to get it earlier. And again, that's us. That's this type of game.
The hardcore.
And so I see that, and I like that, but I feel like that will be a wash, because you're saying that could sell games. People can try something for a couple weeks, and they'll like it, and then they get on sale, so they'll buy the game. But I feel like there's also some games, and that's where you're asking, does the hardcore continue to buy their games? Yes, to some extent, but the ones that they're a little iffy on, or they just kind of want to see, I feel like a lot of those games, they won't be hooked enough to where they go on and they buy it when they pull it off of Games Pass, and that almost washes with the people who got lured into something,
there'll be some of
people
that.
Who got lured away from something, and pretty soon that's all equal.
Yeah, there'll definitely be some of that. There'll be some interesting developments as a result of this, no doubt.
Yeah. So, and I feel like it's very polarized right now. Some people are very excited, think this is really great.
Well, I saw a lot of people having very positive reactions. I saw tons of people on social media today saying that they were going to buy an Xbox just to take advantage of this pass. So I think it could be good. I think Microsoft's long-term goal is really, I think they're eyeing Netflix. They're eyeing kind of that pie in the sky. Last year, Netflix made over $11 billion throughout the course of 2017 on monthly subscriptions. This year, they're on pace to do somewhere between $14 and $15 billion. So I think Microsoft sees that number, and they really think that could help, obviously, profits, but it could help with funding first-party titles in the future, because Phil Spencer has said that in some of his interviews, that he sees Game Pass as basically being the money train into getting you more first-party exclusive games, which then go right back into Game Pass, creating kind of a positive feedback loop. So I think that's ultimately their goal. They really want to hit those Netflix numbers and rake in that money that Netflix is getting.
Can they really do that, though? Because, I mean, how many humans do you know that don't watch movies or TV at all?
Yeah.
Maybe a couple.
That's valid.
Is there enough gamers for that? And gaming is growing, clearly, but is there really anywhere near the level of casual gamers as there are casual TV watchers, both being willing to pay, essentially, because they're the same price, $10 a month?
Yeah, I mean, that could be an issue if what you're saying is correct, and there's a lot more people willing to do those kinds of things versus gaming. But looking at the growth of gaming that you and I have talked about over this last year, it's huge, and it's not slowing down. It's actually speeding up. It's beating previous generations pretty consistently. This generation's been incredible. 116 billion last year. Going to be hopefully over 120 billion this year. So I think it can. I think the more people you convince to do these types of things, only paying $10 a month for the Game Pass to be able to try out well over 100 games. Somebody said there's almost 150 today on there. Yeah, I think it can turn people into gamers as well. So ultimately, I think it's going to be a great thing for them, and they'll be profitable because of it, even more so.
So you're very much on the side of, yes, you can see where this came from and where it's going. I'm on the side, I wouldn't say like I'm completely against it, but definitely my immediate reaction to it was like, that's not a good idea. Why are they doing this? So it will be interesting to see where this goes over the next couple years. And we may not get a lot of information on where it goes, but I hope we do. We'll at least be able to tell what people on social media are and are not doing.
Yeah.
The question ultimately becomes, if I buy 50 games in a year and you buy 50 games in a year, for every one of us that's like that, is there 50 casuals each or however many you bought in a year to balance that out that are buying Game Pass, subscribing, and the most important thing is forgetting about their subscription, actually. That's actually what these companies
I'm guilty of having done that a lot over the last decade.
Me too. Yeah. I think we all have at least 5 or 6 things that we don't even really remember what they are.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. They're not even trying to get the content out there as much as just getting people subbed and making the money off of it.
Yeah, definitely.
But ultimately, it'll come down to, are there more of us that stop buying, and how much do we stop buying? Because we won't stop buying everything. And then are there that many of them? And it should be interesting to see. But hopefully, it actually does what you're talking about, which is growing gaming faster, right? So hopefully it actually does that. It actually causes more people to think, maybe I'll try a game. Maybe I'll try getting into this.
So we kind of have a rare moment of agree to disagree kind of thing on that.
Yeah, that doesn't. We don't usually have that, but that's.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time we disagreed on anything. We're usually on the same page for most stuff.
Usually on the same page, and maybe I'll come around, or maybe you'll come around. Whoever's right the other one has to come around.
Well, yeah, that's the funny thing about this. Only one of us can be right about this.
Only one of us is right, and
we'll
it will
know.
either happen or it will not.
I'd say a year from now we'll know how it's going. If it's
and
going
it'll make it into a video.
Oh yeah,
we will talk about it. Speaking of actually interesting predictions that we've done, so we talked a lot about after CES and Paris Games Week. Is that the one with that they had the good conversations?
That's
with the devs?
PSX.
That was PSX. Okay,
yeah.
So we talked a little bit after that about release dates. And you predicted a couple of things. One of the things you predicted was that God of War would release in June.
That was last video, yeah.
No go, you did not hit that one. So last video you said June. It turns out it's April.
April, yeah.
But you have a bigger, more important prediction that did come true.
Yeah.
Or I think it came through, which is that essentially they have these games ready.
Yes, that game has been ready.
There and they're parked.
The game has been ready for a while.
Yeah. I think you said something like early 2017.
Well, they did a change to the graphics. Some people have noticed this. Some people have they're acting like they can't see it, but the graphics have been downgraded from the original 2016 stuff that we saw versus what it looks like now. Okay. So I do believe what Sony said, that they're in-house, they were playing the game internally February 2017. I do 100% believe that was absolutely true. And I think they were trying to rework the graphics to basically make it more stable, maybe get it a 60 frames per second frame rate, if not at least a locked 30. So I think they reworked some things, and that's essentially what's been going on over this last probably 8 or 9 months, a lot of polishing.
So they really could have put it out back then if they really pushed and wanted to.
They wouldn't have been able to put it out, in that state because the hardware wasn't powerful enough to run it. But a little sooner.
In between here and there.
Yeah, in between now. But April basically confirms that other prediction, which is where you were going.
Yeah, which is basically that they have a lot of these IPs lined up. They're ready to release, or they're very close.
Yes.
And they're scared of their release dates. And it goes back to the attach rate we talked about. It goes back to all these things we've talked about, that games are not selling how they should be. And both of these companies know it. All 3 of the companies know it. Nintendo's just having a good current time.
Nintendo just does whatever they want.
And they do whatever they want. Yeah. But ultimately, I think they're trying to land these right where nothing else
other games
so nobody else can take their sales.
So far, I mean, I haven't checked every date of April, but so far it looks like no big titles are coming out.
It's pretty alone on its own island, I think.
Yeah, so, I mean, what'll be interesting to see is Microsoft going to try to release a title within a couple weeks to sort of match them pound for pound?
Wouldn't it? Yeah.
Or are they going to let them have April and take, May and June? Those 3 months are great, by the way. April, May, June. Not a lot of titles released in the summer. So that's a really important time.
Like October, November.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The last 4 months of the year, so many games come out.
So we've predicted that Sony is trying to be more careful about where they release to, just to get more sales on the initial trend of the game when it comes out and it sells a whole bunch. And then Anthem was announced as being delayed to 2019.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
So, I mean, I think it would have been tough for them to make 2018 anyway. But the gameplay that we saw at E3 running on X hardware was pretty darn polished, though.
So that
brings up the question, was it because they really need more polishing, or are they now reworking the entire game because of all of the hoopla over Star Wars Battlefront 2?
Bingo.
Which is what I would say it probably is.
Yeah, so, I mean, think about it. You had Battlefront come out, you had... we've been in the war against microtransactions for a long time, but that was a new level. I mean, they literally got them removed from the game.
Yeah.
And a lot of games are, again, it goes back to the sales and the attaches not being where they could be for the devs to make the money they need to make. And microtransactions is one of the ways to kind of curb that. Definitely. And now that there's this big of a problem, they very well could have had to go back and remove microtransactions, and that may change the whole game to where they have to figure out how are we going to make up that profit that we would have lost there. Yeah,
you had certain people on certain podcasts telling people to cancel their pre-orders and pre-order a different game very specifically. I mentioned that before. We saw that on one of the IGN shows that they have.
So that was IGN, which is a major site with major influence.
With major followers. And I just checked today, those same people that were celebrating all that have close to 150,000 followers on there. And it wasn't just, relegated to the show. They were also doing it on Twitter as well. They weren't the only ones. There was lots of people that were upset about that. It started out with that Reddit thing that we talked about.
Yeah.
So I do think that majorly factored into this game being delayed, and I don't think that's a good thing. I think the more these games like that get delayed, the more that the people put a focus on them, and when they come out, those reviews, like, look at what happened with Andromeda.
True.
The game got destroyed. It was delayed over and over, and look what happened there.
And people's expectations just kept mounting and mounting and mounting, and then before you know it, they've put all this time and energy, and it doesn't sell well at all.
Yeah.
So that is.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that is an interesting
situation. It's unfortunate.
Be interesting to see. The only other point that we need to discuss is, and this is the last time I'm discussing this, is over our last couple of videos, as we've said in the last couple of videos, we've gotten a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you knew about this, but there was one more video made.
Yeah, I actually watched it, and it was pretty bad.
It was, so there's a couple of things, I guess, that I would point out that would just be, slightly different than what we have talked about.
Yeah.
So the new thing that I would add to this is, so let's say that somebody says, all right, look, Samsung, they're selling the same number of TVs right now, today, as they were selling in 1975. What would your reaction to that be?
That would be shocking. That would be terrible.
Really bad.
Yeah.
They're going under. This can't be good.
Yeah.
Adoption rate is the difference between 75 and now. Adoption rate and actually population as well. So everything increases over time.
Everything goes up.
But adoption rate in gaming is way up. And all of the things that we keep hearing are, this is okay, this attach rate's great because it's always been this way. You go back to 85 and all the other... You can go back to almost all of them and see somewhat of a similar attach rate. But all of these comparisons are many years back. None of them are like 2 years ago. Definitely. And you have to factor in the changes in population, the changes in adoption, huge changes in adoption to gaming.
Well, keep in mind all the sales, too. You can buy these games for $5 now. That should be driving the rate up alone.
Yeah, and you've mentioned that actually a lot, that that they didn't used to put these games on sale.
Not that much, no.
And now we're kind of trained to wait for a sale. It's the Steam effect.
Yeah.
And so that also has to do with it. And when you think about $120 in a year, that's how much people would spend if they bought 2 games.
Yeah.
Very little of that goes to Sony. And keep in mind, games are the same price now that they were then.
Yeah.
And we've had, again, years of inflation. So this is an ongoing conversation because...
It is, yeah. I just want to say one thing about that video. I'm not trying to bash the guy or anything, and he was doing his best that he could. But I think some people are finding out that it's actually kind of hard to talk about these numbers off the top of your dome in a spur-of-the-moment video with no edits and no cuts. It can be a little... What was the word? Brain frying or
brain frying?
Yeah,
that was the one. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see if we can link that so people can see that.
Ryan McCaffrey.
Yeah. He had
he was probably stressed by the end of.
Probably borrowed an entire bottle of Tums from Ryan
McCaffrey. He's done with Super Lucky reviews, so now he can spare some. Which is funny because that is a good point. It is actually something that we put a lot of time and energy and effort into making sure that our numbers are solid, and we've looked at every aspect of something before we're
and our brains didn't get fried.
And our brains don't get fried.
Yeah.
But, it's not quite as easy as it might look. So one announcement about this weekend is we are going on GRG this weekend.
Yes,
K-Mega. Shout out to K-Mega for having us on this weekend.
That is awesome.
His podcast is awesome, so we'll be on there Friday night. We'll tweet out the link.
Yeah, I think I can post a link in the comment section for this video as well. So.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
And then a huge thank you to all of our new subs. We have a ton of new subscribers.
It's been blowing up over these last 2 videos or so. And it continues. We continue to get subs, so we thank everybody for sharing. In particular, we had 2 people we wanted to do shout-out, and they're both actually returning shout-outs.
Yeah, so Worrywart and Azrael, both of which we have shouted out recently, but they really work on getting us those subs. They really go out there and try to share our stuff.
They both did really nice posts where they had really nice things to say on Twitter about us, and we can't thank you enough for that. We always get the backs of people that have our backs. If there's anything you guys need, we are there for you. Absolutely. No matter what. That's incredible, and it's really helping us get closer to meeting those numbers. So hopefully we will be able to meet some of those numbers by February 20th, because that's one of the reasons why people do YouTube, is to try to recoup some of that, because all of this has been out of pocket. Yeah. We've bought everything that we have for this, and we don't really make any money off of any of that. So
so our time doesn't
greatly appreciate it.
Come back to us in any way other than we like to do it, thankfully. That's it, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. Thanks for watching.